A new and unique nation has been created to protect people from the dangers of a brutal nature. It was called the Blue Moon. Its ruler was a wise and kind man who governed the country diligently and justly. The citizens of the Blue Moon lived a carefree life in harmony under his tutelage. But that was until he was assassinated in a coup d'etat. And soon, a rebellion engulfed the whole country. The land became a blazing inferno, filled with the hatred of those around it and the ashes of the dead. The water was poisoned and polluted, and the common people had no food or water. The streets were in utter chaos. People were fighting against each other. And killer robots also began to consume the world. Many people lost their future to the so-called cold blades. And that's when ordinary people lost all hope to the rebels. There he appears. He was a big and muscular guy who had a red mask on his head. The man in the red mask killed the leader of the rebels and ended the war. He became a folk hero who brought peace back to everyone. And they called this legendary hero the Red Man. It is now 100 years after the end of the war. The headmaster and part-time history teacher was telling the story. A girl asked her teacher why the war had ended so long ago and they were still living in a slum and not on a blue moon. The girl's neighbor replied that it was because we were the villains in the story. The teacher said that the truth is that you are the descendants of the rebels who once almost destroyed the blue moon. But despite your past, remember that 9 of you are innocents. And that was the end of the history lesson. It was time for lunch, and before going to eat the children decided to help Mr. Kim. Kim was their teacher who was in the garden picking berries. They helped their teacher and all went out to eat together. Today, they were eating beans. Basically, the same as yesterday and the day before. The boy called Harjin could no longer eat them and he threw them away and said he would never touch them again. The other children looked at him and said he couldn't be so bad. Their teacher heard all this and came up to them. He told Harjin that he had to eat the beans. Do you know why? I know, the boy answered. It's because the people who live in the slums die of hunger every day and have nothing to eat. So we should be grateful to the school for the food and eat it without complaint. True to the teacher's answer. But also because the beans will help you grow healthy and big. A boy called Peksun bent down and started to eat the beans that the boy had thrown off the floor. But he was told not to eat them from there because he might get sick if he eats dirty food. But the boy had already swallowed them. The caretaker's name was Kim. Although he had an unusual name, he had an ordinary job in a slum. It was the only school in the slum. But the place was really like an orphanage. There was only him, the headmaster, and 9 other children in the school. Those children were all he had. They were his whole world. And so he finished his work, and thanks to him they were briefly protected from the rain. He wondered what the children were doing now and decided to go to them. The children were playing in the meantime. The boy pretended to be a red man. And he wanted to end this war. They were fans of the Red Man. Everyone wanted to be him or at least look like him. A teacher came up to them and told them that games were good and fun. But he told them to be careful how you take other people's things. The teacher told the boy to take Mara and play with him on the playground. He agreed and they went to play football. Now he had to get this mask in order. He looked at the mask, he started looking her straight in the eyes. And while he was looking he started to feel something. It was to the point where his eyes started to get very red. But suddenly the headmaster comes up to him and says that he's been looking for that mask. Did Teshin take it again? Yes, he did. The headmaster didn't understand what he liked about such a creepy mask. The guy took it every chance he got. But whether it was creepy or not, it was just an ordinary mask, Kim answered. It was the principal's favorite thing. When Kim touched it, his heart beat much faster and he got hot. He didn't understand how it was or why it was possible. At this time it started to rain outside and they decided to go and take things off. It had recently been sunny outside, but for some reason it had suddenly become very cloudy. The headmaster says to Kim that he has been hearing strange rumors lately. What? What kind of rumors? Kim didn't understand. Some men in suits are kidnapping children. But the principal didn't think they'd come to a place like this with mountains all around them. But, as the children's guardians, they have to be careful. And warn everyone in advance. The children were playing football, they were enjoying themselves and having fun. And as they were playing, the ball flew to the fence. The boy saw it and ran to get the ball. When he came closer he saw that there were some trucks standing there. Kim, thanks to the principal and the girl Soen, finished quicker before it started to rain. But then a guy runs up to them who looks like he's been beaten. He started to say in a panic that Teshin and the others had been grabbed by some men. They were taking everyone with them without pity. And the guy didn't know what to do about it. Ho ho ho, we're not strange men. A voice came from the corridor. It was some mutant who said he was a scientist sent by the Blue Moon. His name was Rogel. He said he came here to find exceptional young talent to help their city, and he was indeed fortunate to find 9 children in this slum. He also said he would express his joy, but he had no lips or eyelids. What are you talking about? Kim asked. They were very frightened. Are you the kidnappers from the rumor mill? And then another man walks up to Rogel. And there were a lot of guys in black suits behind him. He starts saying that Kim's right and they're trafficking people. Well, now he wants to kill them and take all the kids. It's amazing to think that little kids could somehow get away from us. He told the guys who were with him to grab him no matter what. The principal told them to get out of here fast and started covering them with himself. He got in front of the guys in black and started screaming that they wouldn't go through him. But then there was a gunshot. I'm sorry, but I'm tired of these dramatic scenes, the boss said, and killed him with a shot to the heart. Kim tried to run away, but didn't make it and got shot too. The kids started crying and they were grabbed by these men. They took them with them. Kim was still breathing. He hadn't experienced what he'd heard before. He couldn't think that such a thing could happen to him. Because no one comes to this godforsaken place. Ever. This was their paradise, where they could wander in peace through the ruins that remained after the war. They thought they had finally found happiness, but in an instant that dream was shattered. The headmaster gets up with the last of his strength and says that every day thousands of people die in the slums, so he built a school in the mountains to protect the children. But he failed. So he pulls out a mask from his jacket and says, "You must protect them and save their future." He puts it on Kim and dies, and so the guy gets a second wind. Max's breath begins to consume him. And suddenly he opens his eyes. He begins to grow very quickly in size and feel that he has become unimaginably strong. The men who grabbed the kids decided to split up. And some of the cars have already left. But as the guy of one more car decided not to go right away because he wanted a smoke. That was his big mistake. He didn't realize how much danger he was in. Suddenly, the driver starts hearing some shouting and some rumbling. So when he decides to look out the window, he sees that some big, dopey guy in a paint mask killed his partner. And he's already lying on the floor without his head. He didn't understand what was happening and didn't know who it was. Out of fear, he tried to drive away straight away and started hitting the gas. But that didn't help him and the red man grabbed his car and threw it to the floor with all his might. He then grabbed the driver by the neck and lifted him up. He wanted to ask him where his children were, but he didn't want to say anything and that's why he died. The girl they were carrying got out of the truck as her door was smashed and she saw her hero, the red man. These guys in black thought that man's social role was predestined from birth. And they were the ones in whom the noble blood of the Blue Moon flowed. And all men were to worship them. The teacher took the girl with him and they went into the classroom. He tried to take off his mask, but all attempts were unsuccessful. He would rather break his neck than take the mask off. Moreover, the fact that he was wearing it made him angry all the time. The girl was scared and did not understand why her teacher had turned into a red man, but she could not see that he was happy about being a red man. As he looked not like a hero but like a monster. He kept trying to take off his mask and still didn't know what to do. He tried to bang his head against the floor. But that only broke the floor. The red man buried his principal and he couldn't understand why he put the mask on him. And then the guy starts remembering how he got beaten up just for being there. And then when he was bleeding, the principal came up to him. Told him to know where he could stay, and he took him with him to his school. The principal wanted him to be a teacher and look after the children. The teacher knew that only teachers can teach is not true. The principal knew then that the boy could be a good teacher. The boy could not have expected that he would become a teacher. But he followed him without hesitation because he had no place to go and at first he wanted to run away from there. But with time the boy started to get used to it and for a few years now he has been a great teacher and educator. When the two of them were on the balcony, the teacher asked the headmaster why he had chosen him. There were many more people in the slum that were even poorer than this guy and needed help. The director came up to him and looked him in the eye and knew at that moment that he was the one. The director trusted him 100%. And he was sure that if anything happened to him in the future, he knew that the children would be safe. The girl was crying and did not want her teacher to leave. It could have been dangerous for him. But he had to save the other children as they were his family too. The boy was confident that the girl could cope when she was alone. The girl came up to him and gave him a final hug. The boy promised her that he would come back, and then he went to the slum to look for the others. After that he left to look for the others. To avoid attracting attention, he put on a Macintosh. When he got to the slum he saw the guy sitting in front of a house and he decided to go up to him and ask if a truck had passed by. But the guy got really scared and said he didn't see anything. The guy went off on his search. He wanted to catch them alive. Guys in black suits and trucks was an unusual sight for those in the slums. All that mattered there was to feed and clothe themselves. Kim wanted to look into the red light district. But then he remembered the moment he had been visited by a scholar who said he was a scholar sent by the city of the Blue Moon. So he went straight there. There were 3 guards at the entrance. They were waiting for a truck to come to them, but the truck had not yet arrived. But the guards didn't consider the possibility that the truck might be attacked. And then the red man walks towards them. The guards looked at him and didn't know who he was. They thought it was some weakling from the slums who came here to ask them for money. But when the red man approached them, he said he was looking for a white truck. He saw that the guard had some paper and he took it from him and read that the gourmet truck had arrived here with the children. The guard shouted at him to give him the paper back quickly. And the red man decided to give it back. He slammed this paper into the guard's face and thereby broke the stone floor with it. Then he started asking the other 2 guards where the truck was going. He warned them that if they didn't answer he would kill them. And whoever told him, he'd give them life. But the guard didn't listen to him and he took out his gun and started shooting at him, but all the shots were unsuccessful. And the red man took it and threw it against the door so hard that it made a crack there and stuck in. The 3rd guard didn't want to shoot him anymore and he started saying that he would take him to the truck. He decided to lie that the gate to the gourmet shop was closed. The gates could only be opened from inside and had to be waited on because they only open when the moon is in the sky. Thus he decided to call for reinforcements. But the red man had no time to wait and he grabbed the guard and flew with him to the top of that gate. He pointed his head towards the city and told him to tell him where the luxury goods shop was. So he went with him there. 100 years ago the rebels failed to take over the country, they were exiled and forced to live in misery to pay for their sins. So people started fighting against each other to protect what little they had left. All that led to selfishness and they all went their separate ways. They became divided into different groups, the slum, the trendy district, the red light district and the cemetery. All these were called their streets. And the descendants who saved the country and its people ran a huge corporation, and lived in skyscrapers that were built on the ruins of the old city and enjoyed their security, behind high walls. As a symbol of great glory they founded the city of the Blue Moon. The red man with the guards was walking and all he could see were the permissive buildings. The place was huge, but it was just ruins. Beyond the ruins was supposed to be the center where all the skyscrapers were. There was no one in these abandoned places to rescue the guard, so he hoped he would be all right if he took him to the center. He told him to go straight ahead and then go right. But suddenly a girl comes along and says that's not the right way. And if he has to go to the gourmet shop, he has to go left. He didn't realize who it was and the guard starts apologizing for making a mistake. The red man asked the girl who she was. The girl replied that her name was Panda and she was a high school teacher in a trendy neighborhood. She understood from his clothes that he was from a slum. He told her that his name was Kim and that he was also a slum teacher. Since they had the same job and were going to the same place they had to go together, which they did. The girl was sitting in some place and didn't understand where she was. There was meat hanging and there were some mummies. This girl was on her way back from school and a white truck appeared out of nowhere. Strangers started forcibly taking them with them and after that she ended up in this place. It seems her sister was taken to another place. Her hands were tied and she couldn't see anything because it was very dark. She starts to hear somebody coming, and then a fat man comes in who was like a puppet stitched up. He had a butcher knife in his pocket and this butcher was covered in blood. He growled and walked over to the mummies that were lying there and took them with him. The girl realized that they were all people who were wrapped in bandages and folded up in this room. Suddenly some other guy in a mask came to the girl. He said that he had come to save her. The guy was wearing a chain of fingers symbol. He was telling her that the structure of the task was complicated, so he was late, but he would rescue her anyway. But the girl got scared, which caused her to start making noises. The guy was telling her to be quieter, but it was too late. Suddenly the head of the monster that wanted to eat them appears at the door, and suddenly this head starts turning into a huge amount of bloody teeth, and starts flying at the boy. At this time the red man and the fashionista came to their main shop. There was a lot of fish, vegetables, meat and everything. All the vendors said that they sold only fresh produce that had passed strict quality checks. I told the guys that they were not accepting any new customers, as the shop was open only for VIP guests and companies, and told them to leave and come back tomorrow. I told them to come back tomorrow. The girl said they were interested in what they wanted to see. The girl smiled and asked if they sell human meat. The guard was furious and could not believe that people were being sold here. It seemed that all these people were cannibals. The vendor replied that of course they were selling, but their customers don't ask such questions. They all started packing their knives as they realized that they were very suspicious. They started asking them who they were. The red man stripped off his clothes, and became indignant that even in their slums where there was nothing they did not resort to such horrible things as cannibalism. He became very angry and asked them where the children were. The girl looked at him and told him to calm down because as far as she knew the gourmet shop did not consider the younger kids as food. Even if they did kidnap them they shouldn't have killed them right away. But the girl had to hurry as she was looking for the teens. The red man wanted to save the children as soon as possible. The evil salesman realized that they were the guardians of the children who were brought in yesterday. They did not understand how someone like them could get here. But they didn't want to let them take them away as they were high-end products. They started running at him with their knives to kill him. The first 3 were killed by the red man in one blow. But the others began to surround him and attack together. After they had surrounded him they started thrusting their knives into him. The remaining criminals were vaguely aware that they had attacked someone unusual. They did not know that he was more than just a man. But in a moment they stopped. And they were all very frightened as all the stabbing was unsuccessful and he was not bleeding. Now he stood before them, covered in blood, but not wounded. He began to advance on them, knocking them out with powerful blows. He did not want to kill anyone, but they gave him no choice. The red man was forced to defend himself to stay alive. The guy could not be wounded with a gun, so he could not die from some knives. But the sellers didn't know that, so he started scattering them all to different sides and his wounds instantly began to heal. The girl looked at him and understood why he was walking here all alone. The girl and the guard decided to help the boy, but the guard did not know what to do as he did not want to help the intruders, but he could not help the criminals either as he was a city guard. The girl, meanwhile, was very good at fighting and repelling her attackers' attacks. She had learned all this on the street because it was a dangerous place, especially to protect children. The teachers had to be strong. But after she had beaten 1, 10 more ran after him and they started running away. Meanwhile, in the gourmet shop in the restaurant basement, the cannibals continued to eat their scallop steak in pleasure, fully immersed in their world of flavor enjoyment. After all, for them it was a real masterpiece that satisfied all their nutritional needs. The main course was scallop steak. It was prepared by a secret chef for his ruler. It had a new sauce with a new recipe from a new chef. The new sauce he had developed was not to the taste of even the boss himself. He was worried, for tomorrow they were to have a very important guest and the boss wanted him to enjoy a taste he had not experienced before. The annoyed boss threw his plate at the cook who had prepared the dish. The cook realized that this was his defeat and he was prepared to do whatever it took to right his wrong. The boss asked them about the girl they had brought in yesterday. She was supposed to be the main course of the event. He could feel his body moving fast, allowing him to dodge the blows and attacks of his opponents. There was only one thought in his mind, to find answers and stop these terrible practices. The red man continued to fight and defend himself, even as his body became more and more scarred. He knew that this was the only way to find answers and expose these cannibals. Finally the red man managed to overpower his opponents and stop them. The boy wanted to ask them where they were keeping the children, but he could not as his body was moving on its own and he had no control over it. The girl told him not to worry as she knew where they were. The girl had a finger chain patch, with which she could easily find out the location through telepathy, but only the handsome head of the fashion district was capable of this. Since he had superpowers, he put them into the things he made. The girl saw the location and they ran there. The guy who tried to save the girl was brutally murdered. The girl was tied up and stood on the podium with her mouth covered. She was put up for auction. Her shin was sold for 554,000 yulves. Her buttocks for 913,050 yulbways. The girl didn't understand why they were doing all this, they were people like her. It was very hard to get teenagers, so the prices were unbelievable. These cannibals sold everything but the belly and organs. Every part they bought from the gourmet shop was cooked by chefs and sold to customers. And so the auction was over. Now they wanted to eat it. A butcher comes into the studio with knives and starts to approach her. It seems the death of the man who tried to save her was pointless. But suddenly a man in a red mask jumps from the ceiling under a red beam and he smashes the butcher to the floor. The girl who was looking at him thought the red man was just a fairy tale. But then he saved her. He came here because the panda told him that his 3 children were being held here. The patch pointed to this place. When they came to get him, she saw a girl and realized it was her apprentice named Rai. During the excursion they got lost in the street. The panda immediately ran up to the girl and tearfully hugged her. The panda said what she thought his children were not here, but in fact, it was stupid to assume their children were tied up at first. The boss sat there and didn't understand the mess. He knew he shouldn't have messed with the kids from the fashion district, but it was too late. Panda recognized the guy, it was the chairman of the gourmet shop. The red man hoped he could find the kids if he caught him. The gourmet shop chairman looked at him and drank his wine. He laughed at him as he thought there was nothing he could do. Normally the inhabitants of the Blue Moon did not even dare to look him in the eye, and he was sure that he would not be able to catch him. There were a great many men in black around him, defending him. They started to draw their swords and then ran at the guy to kill him. But as usual, they didn't succeed. As all the red man's wounds healed. The boss didn't understand how he killed all his guards, and it all happened in such a short time. But there were still the twins left. They were his strongest guards. They tuned up and with all speed ran at him with their fists. The red man stood up and put his fists in front of him. Then the guys who ran at him fell down with broken arms. It was no longer funny as these were his strongest guards. And the boss had never seen them beaten. The red man grabbed this foodie by the neck and lifted him up and started asking where he was keeping his kids. He thought what he was saying about the child they had just rescued, but he said he was looking for the 9 children they had kidnapped recently. Gourmet started laughing at him and said that it was no surprise as they looked very appetizing, and said that they weren't here and said that the guy would never be able to find them. He said to just give up. The red man didn't know what he meant. The girl started screaming for the guy to turn around, but it was too late. It was the butcher who came up behind him with a knife and cut him in 2. After that the gourmet could tell him calmly where they were now. He said that they were now in the hands of people who were far more powerful than he, and they wanted children not of the Blue Moon, children without kin. So that even if they disappeared no one would look for them. That was exactly what these children were, they thought. But it wasn't that simple and they didn't expect him to go after them. The boss took their demands into account and provided them with children. The boss thought he was done with the boy and told the butcher to take care of him and not to forget to get rid of the uninvited guests. The red man heard everything and realized that his children were not here and there was no reason for him to leave them all alive. The hand that separated from him squeezed the foodie, and the red man began to recover. The gourmet was in complete shock and did not understand how after his body was cut in half he remained alive. The butcher, after noticing, immediately tried to strike again, thereby cutting his arm. But the red man recovered it with ease. A knife was all the butcher could use. The red man began to get very angry, to the point where his mask was very strained. The butcher was a beast of carnage, but he was frightened of him and dropped his weapon. The boss started ordering him to kill the guy and he obeyed him and with all the force of his fist punched the guy in the face, but the guy withstood the blow and started punching him back and thus he killed the butcher with one punch. Gourmet looked at him and was delighted as he was extraordinary. He had seen many monsters in his career, but this man was a real monster. And so when he wanted to hit him, he said that if he killed him you would become a criminal and lose your chance to get your children back. So he decided to offer the red man a deal and he helps him find his children. The red man decided to ask what the panda thought about it. As far as she knew, even if he has power, he can't mess with people who are stronger than him on his own. And the girl said that it would be much quicker if they knew where the children were in the finger chain. The girl closed her pupils' eyes. And she said that it means he's useless. Because of the uselessness of the gourmet, the red man could safely kill him and not feel guilty. As they sat, the girl told the panda that a man of the finger chain was trying to save her. He had a mask that covered half of his face. The panda remembered who it could be and said it was not a man, as he was all 2 years older than her. And she was sure he was all right. His job was to scout. In other words, discovering her. If it suddenly seemed impossible to rescue her, he would have to hand over the patch and let her go. But in the end their plan was for Panda to rescue her. Moreover, all members of the finger chain, including Panda, had been trained so that we could control Blue Moon City. So they couldn't overpower any of them so easily. Also, Panda said that she was sure that he had already returned to the fashion district and was resting. This was very strange, as she had seen the monster eat him alive. The girl screamed because she heard the monster is still here. She felt it just like the last time. The very head that wanted to eat them appeared in front of them. It opened its mouth and flew at the red man. But it was no great difficulty for him and he tore it apart with ease. There was a guard inside the beam. He said he was looking for the children, but this monster attacked him. He struggled, but eventually it devoured him. The guard tried to run away when the monster ate him. There was also a guy who wanted to save the girl. The panda approached the red man and said she knew where they had to go. They have to go to a giant food shop. This shop is a regular giant food business, which was like a gourmet shop. That's why the president has developed a good relationship. So much so that they are considered brothers. Gourmet food, which didn't reach the conglomerates, was able to rise so high because of the giant food support. And as they exchanged information with each other, traces were left behind. She deduced that the giant food was holding Ray's sister, Ramona, and one of his disciples, Henjung. Now they were waiting for a response from the finger chain and they would drop them the location of the children. The guard very much overheard their conversation and was very frightened. He said the giant food was really dangerous. The OG representative was one of the heroes who prevented the uprising. He has blue blood. It was a whole other level and they could all die. Blue blood is what they call the pillars of Blue City. Pillars that can be counted on the fingers of one hand. Ray had to go home and the panda had to lead her to the passageway that leads to the ruin. But the girl remembered everything that had happened to her. And she told them to take her with them. They told her she couldn't go, but the girl was stubborn and said her sister was in town. I'll go. No. 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 After an unsuccessful argument with the red man, the girl went up to the teacher and asked him if she could go with them. The teacher said sure, which made the boy very angry, to the point where his mask cracked and splinters flew into her mouth. It tasted like blood. The red man said she was crazy, but the teacher said she was an adult and she could help us. On top of that, she has a special talent. The finger chain suggested that Ray might accompany us when we go to rescue Ramon, because she wants to protect her family more than anyone else. The red man replied so she wouldn't hold it against him later for not stopping her. Actually, the teacher didn't want the girl to go with them either, but she had a special talent. Even if she joined the fight, she had to defend herself to the best of her ability. The girl agreed and they set off. They walked into the zipper shop. It was a high-end shop. There were only a couple of places like it in the whole town. It was just a clothing shop and the red man didn't understand why he was brought here. Panda replied that it wasn't just a shop and showed his patch. It turned out to be a secret hideout of the fashion district inside the city. Panda told the man who was a consultant that they needed help before they went on their mission. He agreed and the girl went to the wall and opened for them a secret passageway that had a lot of doors in it. The head of the fashion district was a girl called Handsome, who had managed to turn the wasteland into a fashion district on her own, and had always been wary of Blue Moon City. She always knew that Blue Moon City was corrupt. She also knew that if the fashion district was attacked, they wouldn't be able to defend themselves alone. So she decided to form a group with superpowers she called the Chain of Fingers. The members of this group made peace to become the eyes, ears, hands and feet of Hands. And Zipper's shop, which operated undercover in Blue Moon City, also belonged to the finger chain. They went into this secret place and were told that the whereabouts of the kidnapped slum children was a rather serious and heavy inquiry. But since Panda had asked for it, the croupier would find out. The red man thanked the lad. Panda was surprised that he knew how to thank since she had only seen him in anger. The guy banged on the table and said that these city boys are child kidnappers, so he wants to destroy them. The finger chain employee said that the story of Kim, who single-handedly destroyed this huge and sturdy company, is impressive. It's great that their group opposing the city has such a strong ally, and that's why there aren't many shelter zippers in town to avoid detection. However, they are counting on a good outcome due to his outstanding abilities. But the real problem was that they didn't know how the four of them would get to the giant meal. If they went on foot, they would immediately be spotted by CCTV cameras and the police would be called. And the finger chain could not engage them as the main priority was to work in the shadows of the city and they could not expose themselves so easily. It could also lead to a war between the city and the streets. And the man warned them to avoid confrontations with the police as well. They also did not like the fact that this cowardly cop was also here. The guard got nervous and looked at the pipe, and when he looked he came up with a new idea. How about this? To sneak in a giant meal through her division. What he meant was that there's a bingo delivery company that specializes in delivering frozen food. They set up a long pipe all over the city so the food can't melt on delivery, but the policeman didn't know if it was connected to the headquarters of the giant food. However, if they tried to get through the pipe connecting all the districts, it could be dangerous. Panda said what a really good idea. The girl was surprised that he was on their side. The nearest bingo delivery was in a small town on the outskirts, and the red man had to travel quite a distance to get there. But he had to get there to get information that might help him in his difficult business. But the red man was told that he couldn't go that way because no matter how well he tried to hide, if he walked around town with a naked torso, the chances of being spotted were too great. So he went to pick out some clothes. A carriage arrives, many people in black begin to put up the red carpet and stand guard over it. The chairman arrived on the scene, he could already smell the blood. And he was already hungry with anticipation of what Hero had prepared. But it was a little strange that today the Gourmet Association did not answer the phone and no one even came out to meet them. It was a gourmet shop, they looked at it and saw that there was a dead body on the sign. The boss knew something was up. So the chef runs up to them and starts addressing the gentleman. They ask if he works here, and what happened to the gourmet shop. The cook began to say that an unknown man in a red mask killed Chairman Hero and his subordinates after which he disappeared. He may have had accomplices, but this guy in the red mask made the whole mess on his own. He was a real monster, no matter how many times we got him, no matter how many times we wounded him, he wouldn't die. And there was no way to stop him and I just hid. After all that, they headed towards the center of town. It's very strange, but one of his accomplices was a policeman. There was also a girl with sunglasses and a teenage girl they rescued. The chairman hesitated as the policeman, whether he was real or fake, was already a problem. The guy put his hand on the cook's shoulder and said he understood and it was useful information. Next he put his hand over his throat and started strangling him saying, "Good thing the news of this incident did not spread beyond the outskirts." He strangled the cook and stuffed him in his pocket. If they wanted to find survivors who managed to escape it would take them some time. The boss asked Barry how he could dare to kill his closest onsen in the Blue Moon City. He ordered him to track down whoever had committed this unthinkable atrocity, and told him to have his body delivered to him and to chew on it endlessly. The servant said he would hire a qualified assassin for the case. At this time Kim was trying on clothes that had a shock absorption and self-healing function. The clothes seemed to fit the guy just fine. The handsome collection he was wearing was so rare that no money could buy it. And it was a gift to increase the success of the operation. And so the red man came out in his new, greatest clothes, and they set off in search of the children. Ingo's delivery, the head worker called Rocky stood at the podium in front of a crowd of people who were warmly dressed. He said that before we got to work he would deliver a message coming from a giant meal. As a result of an accident in the main department of the Gourmet Association, the operation of the gourmet shop has been temporarily suspended. More details will be provided when all the ongoing logistical issues have been sorted out. They had to go all out today. They have to work with Paul to keep the bloody fridge warm. It was going to be a nouvelle delivery. They were screaming that they were ready. So the boss gives the order for the gates to open. The gates open and the icebreakers set off to cut the ice. They each had their own job and missions to send through the pipes. The captain came in with them and was asked why he wasn't cold. He replied that cold is something in the face of enthusiasm, and he could be here even without outerwear. But suddenly the gate starts to open and a red man comes out. 30 minutes earlier. How they could leave their belongings unattended was not understood by their team. There are thefts of course, but no one has stolen clothes yet. Usually they steal from an even book of competitors. After we arrived at King's Delivery, I remembered a story the policeman had told me. This story was told to him by his son Bay. There is a common blacklist used by some big companies. All the people listed there had disappeared, but after receiving reports from the families of the missing people, the police investigated and found them. They all froze to death. I am told that he has always been suspicious of Bingo Delivery. The founder of the company appears from the outside to be a good businessman, but in reality to carry out murder orders. It was very brutal. The manager of this shop was himself nicknamed the Mad Dog. He was expelled for multiple murders in the ring. That's when they started following tactics. The red man would walk up to them and they'd already be in their suits. When the red man walked in, the captain said what she wasn't for anyone but the staff and asked who he was. No details, he said. I don't work here, so try and stop me. Since I'm a trespasser, said the red man, and with all his might hit the captain so hard that he flew off into the wall and made a hole there. And then all the icebreakers started running to kill the red man. But after the first one decided to attack him, he broke the ice pick with his bare hands. Looks like he's got some kind of superpowers. In the meantime, the rest of the team had to sneak in while Kim was distracted. They didn't have time to think about it, but it seemed like a good strategy. They decided to look into the B-44 pipe. There was a fork in the path, a worker needed to be present to correct the direction. They had to climb the ice cube and they were good to go. Just as they were about to set off, the other employees noticed that they weren't wearing work shoes. And they got burned. The red man noticed this and quickly ran to save them. The team was already on the ice, and the guy took a swipe at them and sent them down the chimney. The officers saw that the intruders had entered the B-44 pipe. And they wanted to go after them. But they had to go through the red man. But suddenly the captain jumped on him and pushed him away. He didn't understand how he could have survived his blow. He said it was a common thing, it would be a shame not to pull a fight with someone like him. At this time the officers shook the pipe after the criminals. The captain tried his best to stop the red man. The next day, police officers arrived on the scene at the main gate. So, you approached the main gate to report for duty, but all three of your colleagues had disappeared. The policeman spoke. One of them isn't much of a talker, so he doesn't know him very well. But your others aren't the kind of people to disappear, said nothing. The guy tried to investigate, but all the rivers were wiped out. Someone had cleaned up the crime scene. An outsider has infiltrated the city. There was no record of any gate opening or closing on the central server where all the data was stored. However, if they are dealing with someone with superpowers, the only clue is this damaged central gate door. The main gate is made of special material, so it can't be repaired quickly. On the other hand, the new asphalt has only recently been respected. There's also the possibility of them destroying evidence from the inner city. Suddenly a policeman comes up to them and tells them to wrap it up, and to call everyone names. He says it's just a minor incident. All three were found, after which they were dismissed for absconding. Leaving the workplace isn't that common. Yes, it's not that common, but it's such a big problem already. If you don't believe me, ask your supervisor directly. Detective Aston, I'm aware of your influence, but please don't interfere. And the policeman left. At this point, the team was already flying on the ice. But the staff began to catch up with them. They were feeding off their response with all their might. It was some kind of nightmare. If the man hadn't slipped, they would have been able to get there safely. IMU must be having a hard time coping with everyone by themselves right now. Suddenly some frantic guy appears in front. He stops the ice and splits it in two. And because he split in two, the policeman and the two girls split. Panda thought the man who fought the Kim was the boss, but the boss turned out to be the one who came after them. To be precise, he was from another company but held a higher position. He didn't understand how they could even think of getting involved with a partner in a bingo freezer delivery. Did some psycho hire you? The girl said she wasn't a mercenary, she was a teacher. But he thought it was just a joke. The girl tried to attack him. But he fought her off. He thought they were weak for running away. But they weren't. The workers who came with him only got in the way. He had to be more careful. He hit the girl but she ducked. The girl had never lost a one-on-one fight before, and after she ducked she hit the guy in the face with all her might, so hard that his glasses cracked. At this time the policeman was driving the other way. He thought he could escape and request backup to redeem himself for what had happened so far. He thought it was a pipe leading to another place. At this time the chief was fighting the red man. He was stronger than all the other fighters. He liked that. They could have been great friends. The red man was not interested in anything but his children. He killed him, and as soon as he decided to go down the pipe, the boss got up anyway and started saying it was just a warm-up and now we were going to get lost properly. Any other man would have been dead a long time ago. But he seems to have some kind of superpowers. That's right. He had the ability to convert the damage he took into muscle power, and now he's gotten a lot stronger from being killed. He fought to the last man and told the red man to admit he couldn't beat him. He said his ability was just dumb superhuman strength, and his ability converts the damage he takes into a powerful force. In a battle of people with superpowers, the most important factor is what your superpower surpasses your opponent's ability, and the boss said he was superior to him in everything. He can't beat him. It was the greatest fight. The red man was at a disadvantage. You can't just mindlessly go on being someone who gets stronger for it. So he grabbed him, and instead of exchanging blows he decided to try a takedown. He decided to use it to overpower his abilities. He tried to strangle him but he failed and he stormed off, and he grabbed the red man and ripped his arm off. But after he ripped it off, it hit him in the face. He didn't understand what had happened and why he recovered. Still, it didn't make any difference. No matter how hard he tried, initially I say that victory will be his in the end. The red man grabbed him in order to drag him into a deep freeze. He threw him there and closed him up to freeze him. That's exactly how he killed the people who told him. He grabbed at the last moment the door that was closing on the red man, pushed him away. Then the warden through the wall punched him in the face, but he restrained his blow and he was beginning to freeze. At this time the girl was fighting with the captain. The teenager was looking at her teacher and she didn't even know she was that good a fighter. She was usually either chilling or amused. And this guy was really strong too. To be fair, it looked like teacher Panda was at a disadvantage now. The girl tried to throw her opponent off and it succeeded. But it didn't kill him, and he came back and told the ice in half again. The student, because of this, flew off, but she was saved by the guy. And asked why the hell she took a teenager on such a dangerous case. What kind of teacher are you if you don't care about safety? Now you see the difference between you and me, the guy said. If I used all my skills, you'd have been dead a long time ago. He wanted to save her 6 if she surrendered to the police. Suddenly, the girl answered him that he was much stronger and called his name. He didn't understand how she had called him since he hadn't told anyone his name. Could it be her? The girl asked if he still remembered her. Funny, he said. Though she seemed to be on a first-name basis, it wasn't her, he said. A girl as perfect at everything as her looks like someone as clueless as you? Didn't you know you're not the only one here who can show class? Now that you've acted so brazenly, you're done, said girl and headed to kill him. Guy said what she didn't act so light-heartedly, and that it wasn't her. Suddenly the panda activated her ability and the ice they were on right now melted as the guy fell into it. He froze. Her superpower was that she was able to freely control the solidity of the object, the density. The guy looked up and said what they really say, what the Minoans have been saying all their lives. And you've changed a lot. Why such sweet talk all of a sudden? What were you saying? That I'm a clueless person? Is that how you talk to colleagues you haven't seen for a long time? Asked the girl. The girl asked the panda how she knew her. Oh, didn't I tell you? I am from the city of the Blue Moon. The girl was very much surprised. At this time the policeman got out. This road is so confusing, it's like a labyrinth. It was difficult to find the way out. Anyway, it's okay. And all he has to do is get out and report to Tan. But suddenly the girls and the red man appear. He was in total shock. Panda said she was worried for him to get there safely. The red man asked what was wrong with his face. He said he was happy to see you all in one piece. Kim sat and remembered his children. He remembered how well they were doing. He remembered Hanjong. She was a girl who didn't even cry when she was born. She wouldn't cry even when something happened. There's one secret that only she and the director know. Kim. Did you fall asleep or something? No, I was just thinking, he said. The boss who attacked them, they tied him up. And the girl said that she didn't ask for anything special. Just to pretend they weren't here. Huh, there's a whole country on these pipes. How can I pretend I don't know if you're about to attack blue bloods? If word gets out about this, the whole town will be on its ear. Then you'll meet your end right here, said the red man. We're not asking you, we're giving you a chance, said the red man. Not only your fate depends on your answer, but also the fate of those outside this room. This could end badly for all of you. For your information, the only reason you were still alive is because that's what the panda wants. We're colleagues in the past, said the panda. Are you protecting him because you're from the same town? Asked the red man. But by no means. I left the bloody city a long time ago and settled in my neighborhood. I no longer have any attachment to the city. If you look at things realistically, it would be strange if the delivery, which is famous for its speed, suddenly stopped. Better to pretend nothing really happened. She also said that she knows this guy very well. Despite his strength, he actually has a good heart, so if we keep him alive I'm sure he'll take our side. The guy agreed, but in return he wanted them to provide security for his staff. There won't be a problem with that as long as you play by our rules. After all that, things went well for them. They snuck into a friend's town and the employees pretended we weren't there at all, on orders. Surprisingly, no one was outraged. The townsfolk, used to following orders from above. Panda thought he was telling the truth, for at that moment he had no reason to lie to them. He said he had heard the story from them. And the whole situation of kidnapping the children was discrediting the honor of the city of Blue Moon. He said he couldn't help them personally, but would give them some information. The giant food you're heading for isn't real. The headquarters, and who most people know, is effectively used only as a front for doing business. There is a real headquarters, which is where the chairman of the OG. He found this out when he went to the fake headquarters a few times for work. But he doesn't know the location of the real one either. The red man thought that the guy he fought with might know where the real HQ is. But that was a bad idea. The guard said that if he couldn't get the location from outside sources, he could ask someone who works in the pull. It's an industry, initially quite small, so he tried to find someone quickly. My sunbae, he once ran to this method. Any nearby bad guys to get rid of would do. So they came to the cassette service, plus there was a guy beaten up by a lot of men in a white shirt. He said that his bodyguards were already looking for him along with the police. But that's what all the people who came in here told them. They said that the police would not care, as long as the medium-sized enterprise that had risen suddenly disappeared. And then the red man shows up behind them. Are you his bodyguard? They asked him. And the red man said what he had nothing to do with him. And he just jumped down to ask something. Once you've seen this place, you can't get out of here that easily now, the boss said. He told his guards to grab him. And anyone who attacked him just flew out the window. Mistake came out, the panda told him to be as quiet as possible and he threw it out the window. But they're still on the outskirts, so no one would accidentally walk past. None of his guards could do anything to the red man. So when he had beaten all the guards, the boss asked the gentleman what he had just wanted to ask. To begin with, he hit him so something like this, and then he told them that if they wanted to stay alive, they had to obey him. Suddenly several cars arrive at the building and it looks like the guards of the guy who was being beaten up are coming out. They thought it was too late to give up. It was the brother of the guy who got beaten up. They ran over to the guy. And they saw him sitting there beaten up. But on the side, they saw the boss who was beaten up, too. They didn't understand what happened. The brother said that Mr. Kim saved his life. The brother thanked him for thanking him. And wanted to pay him for helping them. But he said he was busy, so they had to keep quiet. The red man tried to find out where the secret headquarters of the giant food was. But the brother who came didn't know that the current headquarters wasn't real. He turned to the red man. Sorry to interrupt while you're busy. You're looking for the headquarters of the giant food, aren't you? That's right. It would be so easy to find the big company's hidden buildings through these thugs. Instead, you can check the location I point out. It would be more effective if explained in detail. If Canna Food hid their headquarters, it would most likely be a tall building. The pride of the blue-blooded old ones would not allow them to place their headquarters in some small building. It's easier for structures to find any suspect building if we know its size. I'd be grateful if you could help me, said the red man. I'll just pay you for your help. He thought that if it works out, they won't owe this suspicious guy any more. His brother is of course a great businessman, but he's too emotional, so he might as well give everything away altogether, and he has to prevent that. The brother said that we could be there at all, in Platt. Yes, we will definitely find out everything. But he was told that you are completely out of your mind. You're almost on the blacklist already. How am I supposed to help someone on the brink of death? My life doesn't matter if I want to help my savior. The red man replied that he would do his own research on the premises and you save your own life. And they went on their way. Brother said to his savior if he needed help just look for the Quran, and he would surely help. The red man came to the illegal services of the Sega Hammer and told them that he had a job for them. At first they all didn't understand who he was and wanted to humiliate him and didn't want to do anything, but after he beat them up they agreed to do everything. At this rate they might find the location of the giant food headquarters pretty soon. Panda asked the red man if he had seen the Construction brothers. He and the Uber are known to be genius preppers. From what they said they could really help. Red man said she was right. And in his mind he was still thinking about the children he wanted to save. At this time the children who had been stolen were playing cards with a drugged-out guy, and they were winning it. He asked them if they had played card games before. He couldn't beat them at all, but they were playing for the first time. And then he said they would play again. The girl asked him when they were coming home. But he said he didn't know because childcare workers like him don't know anything. Suddenly the bell starts ringing. That bell has rung 56 times already. The girl says it's fun to play with the man, but they miss their family, and being in that room all the time was uncomfortable. He asked if the girl had family. Yes, teachers, Yura Oni, older brothers, Tishin Soan and Miri. But it's just a teacher, not a family, but the girls said they were family. He told the girls that now there's a monster in a red mask coming from the streets every night to kill people. That's why they have to stay here. He also heard that his accomplice was a woman wearing sunglasses. The girl remembered the sunglasses her teacher Panda was wearing. And when the guy said she was dead the girl was surprised and asked if that was a lie. Right, I was just kidding. But, weren't you really surprised? Did any of them know you? He asked the girl. But the girl wouldn't admit it. Then the boy told her a funny fact. He whispered in her ear that he was actually from the streets too. And then some guy comes in and says that Rogel has to go. And he left. He asked him, when he was with these kids for days on end, did he gain their trust? The guy said he just went over there because he was bored, but they told him those kids were just ingredients and he didn't have to bother with them. The guy added that he wanted 1 million yol for passing on information he didn't even say what about, but he agreed and paid him the money. Then he said that those who attacked the Gourmet Association were from the fashion district looking for these kids. However, the two girls did not seem to know the man in the red mask. Could he be a mercenary from the red light district? A few years ago, there was already a case of a serial killer in a red mask. The guy in the red shirt started pulling out money and saying they should prepare in advance and now it's his job. He said to turn it into mincemeat and bring the rest here, and if he could manage it he would pay more. He didn't know how he could find them without even knowing where they were. He was one of the best trainers there was, and the guy was confident that he could do his job. The best praise for him was money. So he put on his hat and hit the road. The red man and his team came out of the next building. They were wrong. He was sure that the headquarters was exactly here. But it turned out to be just a den of some criminals. They had been led astray by a leak of false information from a giant meal. The number of zipper grants was limited. And even just finding his children was a daunting task. For starters, they wanted to find a place to hide from prying eyes. In the meantime, the boss of the huge meal, eating his food and drinking wine. Barry came up to him and asked how he was feeling today. Good, the doctor also said that my body condition has stabilized. Then Barry suggested we have a blood ritual this week, and asked him if he had already chosen the children to be used as ingredients for the ritual. As I said earlier, you can only choose one ingredient, as your body may not be able to handle 2 people. Also, those who have the chairman's lunch are looking for a girl called Ramo. Don't think anything will happen, but we'll need a hostage in case the worst-case scenario unfolds. The boss thought about it and said, then we'll use this girl as an ingredient. The red man's team has only 2 places left where they speculate the headquarters might be located. The first is a display company called Europad, and the second is a large mineral water company called Mineral Mountain. One of these must be the disguised headquarters of a giant food company. Red Man said mineral water looks suspicious. Why would they even have such a big building if they're just selling water? And why are they selling water at all? It was all because the rebels poisoned the water near Blue Moon City during the war. Since then, the residents have been forced to buy drinking water. Mineral Mountain, which took over this niche before anyone else, has grown considerably in the meantime. And the security guard said he didn't understand why there was a company that was very famous at all on that list. Anyway, there's something you should know before you go to these places. These two buildings are right next to each other. And they are close to the center, so if you make a mess in one of them, you're bound to attract attention. In that case it sounds like they have only one chance left. But then they hear someone tell them not to bother. Since both of these places are the headquarters of a giant food. The guy on the roof said that since Representative Og likes rhinos, he had ordered a building shaped like horns. He was asked who he was. He said his name was Rogel. But a lot of people call him Purple. The panda seemed to recognize him and told Kim that they should get out. Kim replied that from what he said, he obviously knew about the headquarters. The citizens of Blue Moon City hate absolutely everyone off the street. However, there is a system of granting citizenship to distinguished street dwellers. On the condition that they have to wear a purple collar. Rumor has it that the elected Purple on the battlefield was also nicknamed the Woman. He said he knew everything and came down to earth. Rogel said that Representative Og had sent him here to kill them. The Red Man tried to hit him, but he easily dodged and cut him in half with a regular card. Zardu Girl tried to kick him, but the card stopped her and repulsed the blow. He could not catch her approach, and he thought she too was a killer. However, she was slower than his hands, and the panda flew away from the card. All that was left was what Purple said was a parody of a policeman. And he tried to hide behind a wall. He launched the cards at him and the policeman thought they would fly away, but suddenly they turned around and flew towards him. Those cards grabbed him and pinned him to the ground. Rogel did not want to kill him as he would be in trouble if he killed the real policeman. All that was left was the teenage girl. She was telling the boy that he was very pathetic. He approached the girl little by little and she wanted to use her superpowers. He came up and said what she looked a lot like Ramo. Maybe they're related. Ramo? Do you know her? Of course I know her, the boy said and took a rose from his shirt and gave it to the girl. He said they were best friends with Ramo. He had heard that she was her elder sister. He had heard a lot about how she was an outstanding pupil and he chatted a lot more. Rogel didn't want Ramo to hate her. And killing a family member of a friend seems so wrong. And Ramo I will send there soon too, said the boy, after which he took out a card and swung it at her. But suddenly the girl is saved by the guy who was headless. Purple thought it was the red light mercenary, but it was Kim who was recovering. That's why Kim told the girl not to go with them. She was only getting in the way. Rogel looked at the boy and marveled at him, for even after he had been decapitated he was still alive. He had never heard of anyone with such resilience before. The panda also survived his blow, and it decided to try to hit him again, but it just flew off again. The magician didn't see how he could overpower it, so he decided that if he kept killing it, at some point it just wouldn't recover, so he cut it into so many pieces with his card. Did you want to save Ramo that badly? Did you think everything would go smoothly in Blue Moon City? Purple asked. He was still waiting to meet the guy in the red mask who had been rumored to have wiped out their subordinates. He said he wanted them all to be a little stronger. The girl watched and understood that the red man had already been wounded many times, so he could not fully recover. And it was necessary to buy time for him. So the girl asked him what he meant when he said he would send Ramo there too. Are you going to kill her? You don't know, do you? And Purple decided to tell the story of why the giant food needed the Ramo. Ramo, she was a common ingredient. Chairman Og has cancer and is also over 100 years old, which is a lot. Blue Moon City's medical technology can cure cancer and similar diseases fairly quickly. However, cancer is linked to Chairman Og's abilities, so it cannot be cured by conventional methods. He is one of the heroes who left the rebellion in the past. He didn't die because of his innate strength, but cancer isn't a thing either. He grew bigger and bigger to withstand the growing cancer, and sought more and more unusual tastes to at least temporarily forget about the pain. But as time passed, his life only got worse. Until one day an ingenious scientist came along and suggested a cure. He said to find a girl who matched his sample by more than 90%. And then he would make a cure out of her. Chairman Og used power and money to scour the entire city. But no suitable child could be found. And then the chairman managed to win the lottery. And among the children snatched from the streets, 2 suitable children were found. And one of those 2 children gets bled alive. Since the chairman has been eating people lately, this should sort of become an appetizer. Have I satisfied your curiosity now? Asked the lad. That was my gift to you before you went to the next world, now don't move. How could you let that happen? We won't let anyone touch Ramo and Henjong, said girl. Right? Correct, said the restored red man. If there is so much as a scratch on the children, I will chop up everyone involved. Said the boy and ran off to kill Rogel.